Hey everyone, it's Teddy, aka JamesKisau and MTGO, coming back for a big recap video on Eternal Weekend North America 2025. It was an incredible event this year. It was so nice to meet so many members of the community. I met a lot of my heroes, a lot of people I've talked to for a long time. A lot of people came up to me and expressed support for the channel. I'm deeply appreciative to every one of you. It really made it feel like this is a good thing we're doing. And I talked to people who were saying that they started playing Legacy from the channel, and other people who were saying that they had joined Legacy in the last few months. And it was just amazing to hear and a really great experience overall, even if by the end of it I was extremely tired and spent, but it was in a good way. It was mostly the travel on the way back, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I should start at the beginning. So, story starts Thursday morning. There's a 3 hour time difference and a 3 hour layover. It'd be pretty much an entire day of travel, and I almost missed my flight in the morning since security at the airport was badly impacted by some government shutdown or something. It was an 8:30 a.m. flight, so I did the cheapest route thing, which is like taking a bus to the light rail in Seattle and then taking the light rail to the airport. But what I should have done is split that up by taking like a rideshare app to the light rail station. That cuts out a lot of time with the bus, but I didn't do that because usually it works out fine. But yeah, the security line was just like, you know, the maze of Ith could not contain this security line. It was insane, but I got through it and I made my flight. That was great. And I had a layover in Denver, which was pretty chill. It was a 3 hour layover, but it was still pretty chill. And then I got into Pittsburgh and settled in at my family friend's house in Pittsburgh, which is where I stayed last year as well. It was really nice to have a place to stay that was just kind of pretty removed from everything else going on. It's in a neighborhood called Squirrel Hill, I think. I don't know a lot about Pittsburgh, but I think it's in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood, which isn't far away from the convention center, but it's like a 15-minute drive. So it's far enough away. This is a house I used to visit about every other summer while I was growing up, since they're really old and close family friends. So it's like a deep memory well, and it's very useful for centering. The room I was staying in had a nice little desk, so I set up there and did some re-sleeving and yeah, just try to get some rest. I was noticing I was staying up super late since, Seattle is 3 hours behind, so it didn't feel like midnight. It felt like 9 a.m. But I got some rest. Friday, I left the house a little early. My first event was at 1:30. I slept in quite a bit, but I gave myself a little time to stop by a music store I wanted to see, Pittsburgh Guitars. I'd heard about it, and I got a really cool TC electronic chorus pedal. Let me see. Yeah, this guy, the Corona Chorus. It's a very funny shade of green. It clashes quite a bit on my setup, but I love the way it sounded, so couldn't say no. It was only 65 bucks. It makes sense to me that Pittsburgh is a place where you can find really cool vintage gear for reasonable prices, and that was a good find since I had been needing a replacement for my old Boss Super Chorus that got stolen with the rest of my rig, so this was like a great occurrence. So I bought that, and then I headed to David L. H. Lawrence Convention Center, same place it was last year, so there was no uncertainty. I knew exactly where to hit the garage, where to walk in. Although last year you got up the escalator and made a right and you were pretty much there. This year you made a left and walked about a whole city block down to the end and you were in the other convention hall. Probably the convention hall where the Love Train by the OJs was coming from last year during round one, if anyone remembers that. I imagine this was the convention hall where that was going down. They looked almost identical once you were on the inside. So almost as soon as I get in, I see Harain, which is great. I'm instantly feeling welcomed and in the right place. And we were both signing up for the 130 trial. So we jammed a couple games before that started. While we were playing, I met Samantha, who's an amazing player. And then also while we were playing, Adam came up, who is the main person I work with on the Grixis controlled deck for the channel. Last year it was Adam that came up with Price of Progress as a useful tool across archetypes, and kind of the secret piece our sideboard was missing to kind of connect all these matchups together and even help out other matchups we didn't even realize. So it's really cool to. We knew we were going to meet up at some point, but we just didn't know how early. And yeah, it was great to reconnect. This year, our goal was to find something like a sweeper, but a super useful sweeper, maybe a one-sided sweeper. That was kind of the type of card we concluded would be the most helpful for all of our problem matchups, but it was hard to lock down. Plague Engineer and Toxic Deluge, of course, are classics, and Adam landed on Fiery Covenant, which if you've played Vintage Cube, you're probably familiar with. It is a fantastic and classic card, and I think it did pretty well for him in the main event. Anyways, my first event was the 130 Trial, and it is a single elimination event where if you go 5-0, you get a bye for the Legacy Champs, which is crazy. That's just an automatic win in a points-based tournament. It's very good, and it also helps out your tiebreakers, I believe. I don't know much about tournament math, but that's what I was told. Definitely an enviable prize, and I was like, I think I should try to do this. Just a 5-0, right? Just the trophy. So match 1, I faced Reanimator. It was a good, like, welcome to Eternal Weekend moment. I won the match in 3 games after losing game 1. Pretty normal. Sometimes. I don't know. Anything can happen against Reanimator. And then round 2, I faced Red Prison and took it down 2-0. Good matchup, I would say. Round 3, which was unfortunately as far as I got, I lost to Nadu midrange, and I realized at that point how I had never faced that deck in paper, and even though I theoretically knew my paces, I had no practice, so I was ready to get some more paper reps in, but like actual competitive reps, it's really fun to just jam games, but if there's nothing on the line, I feel like I'm not really putting myself in the correct environment to hone these skills. So there's one more challenge that day at 6:30, and I knew I had to get the reps in. So round 1 was Nadu again, but it was Cephalid Breakfast, not mid-range, and I lost in 3 games. This was a excellent warm-up match. My opponent played super tight, and it put me through a lot of paces and different actions I'd be using throughout the tournament. Super great match. Round 2 was Red Prison again, 2-0'd again. Felt good. I was like, okay, if there's going to be a lot of Red Prison tomorrow, which there was, I'm going to be feeling pretty solid about that. The analog from playing that deck online versus in paper felt pretty comparable, unlike Nadu. And then my round 3 opponent just didn't show up, so that was a little unfortunate. I wanted to get a little more experience in, but I got the prize tickets, I guess, and I left and got dinner with Adam and 2 of the people he was traveling with. Shout out Ford, amazing Nadu pilot, and Alan, who's playing Energy, Black-White Energy. So I guess it wasn't super Energy because there was no Amped Raptor or anything, but there was still Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride, all the classic scary energy cards. But Black-White Energy was more focused on, I think, Staff of the Storyteller. He was playing Marionette Apprentice, which is a cool card, kind of blood artisty. So yeah, we got dinner, great company, and yeah, I tried to go to sleep as early as possible, but it wasn't easy since Seattle is 3 hours behind. I think one of my biggest mistakes happened this evening though, when I was having trouble getting good rest. So I decided to trim 1 Ponder for a Spell Pierce. That wasn't really the worst thing though. Earlier that day, when Harain and I were jamming, he was saying how Ponder is often 1 mana, shuffle your deck, and draw a card. And I was just there, resleeving my deck, Harain's voice echoing in my head, Ponder is shuffle, draw a card. So I decided to cut a Ponder and run 3, and I played a Spell Pierce, and that card was pretty good. But in the sideboard, I decided to cut the Thoughtseize and Opposition Agent for 2 Dread of Nights, even though Adam recommended Fire Covenant, and that would have been a lot better. Or even like Toxic Deluge would have been better. I still want to try Dread of Night, but I acknowledge that most white creatures that are being played are 1/2s now, or 2/2s like Felia. I mean, Ocelot Pride's a 1/1, I guess, but I don't know. It was kind of a weird moment of anti-clarity, I guess, but at the time it felt like clarity. I was like really mulling over that MTG Goldfish article where they said where they picked out like 5 good deck choices for Eternal Weekend, and the fifth one was energy, and how easy of an analog it was for modern players to join legacy champs. Like the jump in investment is pretty marginal if you're already at Eternal Weekend, and I'm pretty sure no one sold their Amped Raptors after the ban because it's not an expensive card. Um, Not a lot of legacy decks are prepared to answer lots of synergistic pieces either, and energy can build a board with very few cards, a powerful board. And while I would never say Reanimator is like unfavored against energy, there are still those games where Ocelot Pride is humming, Guide of Souls is extending the clock with a life gain. If they don't, maybe they don't hit perfect on their Atraxa trigger, there will be those handful, maybe 1 in 20 games or whatever, where energy will win out and head for the top tables, which is where I was planning my list to hopefully be at. So yeah, I brought 2 Dread of Night instead of Opposition Agent and Thoughtseize because I was way more confident in facing energy than Cloudpost, but it didn't work out that way, and it was a costly mistake. I should have just stuck with what I knew. I should have played the stock list, but instead I played 3 Ponders and a Spell Pierce and 2 Dread of Nights. The 3 Ponders and a Spell Pierce worked out pretty fine. Spell Pierce is sweet, but yeah, should have stuck with what I knew, I think. But I got some rest. I showed up the next day, not exactly well rested, but definitely ready. Last year, I remember I had been like playing MTGO back at the house I was staying at, but this year I did not do that. And before you know it, tournament started. So round 1, the matchup was Jeskai Wizards, and I was like, cool, I'm starting off with a good matchup. But the result was a 1-1 draw. It was a tough way to start. Game 1 was super slow and grindy. Thundertrap trainers and stuff. Eventually, they just broke through with a 4th Aerolingus, though, because I was really struggling to put an engine together. Game 2 was a pretty normal Jeskai game, with our card quality kind of beating theirs out ever so slightly. And then, of course, there was no hope when our Game 3 started with less than 10 minutes on the clock. Neither deck is super explosive, so once it hits turns, it was like extremely likely to draw. And this was a big reality check and something that, interestingly, wasn't an issue last Eternal Weekend, but this year I was like always and intensely cognizant of fighting the clock like every single round. And I would assume this year I'm playing faster, but this data kind of suggests the opposite. Maybe decks were just more explosive. I should look at my matchups again last year. But yeah, drew match 1, which did not feel great. And as my I wouldn't exactly call him my colleague because he's has a lot more colleagues than me. But John Barber, who plays at my LGS, advised me to just do whatever you can to not draw the first match, since that will put you in the bracket of other people who drew, and you're more likely to draw that match as well. You might just end up in a really slow world, essentially. But anyways, we were off to round 2. This was a pivotal match. I was in the draw bracket, although I wouldn't say my opponent was a slow player, and I personally don't think I'm a slow player. I might be. Who knows? Let me know. But we got through 2 games, and then the third one went to turns, and I knew if I wanted to have a shot, I could not draw again. I had to do something, but their board was huge. They were playing Red Painter. Everything was jumbled. They had 3 ensnaring bridges out. I didn't even know the deck had more than 1 in the 75, but maybe it's pretty important these days. Everything was jumbled, and then clarity came to me, and I saw the way through. I used From the Catacombs to start getting all these goblin welders that I had been destroying throughout the very long game, and eventually I was able to weld through all their ensnaring bridges, and then the trap room of the Undercities certainly helped out as well. It's 5 damage. I was able to swing for lethal on, I think, maybe the last turn of turns, and that felt like maybe the most complicated win I had to figure out since we were in turns. Otherwise, I could have leisurely let the initiative grind it out if we were in like an MTGO chess clock setting, but I had to find the damage, and with the tools available to me, I mean, it was just a ridiculous game. Each player had so many resources, but since Red Painter can't really check everything, I mean, I had Force of Wills in hand, so I was just fighting over the things that mattered, and what really mattered was getting them to zero. So fortunately, I was able to find a way, but yeah, that was tough. So got a win, feeling good. Round three, um, faced Reanimator. This was a tough loss. I lost in 3 games. I took game one, felt really good about it, and then both sideboard games, I couldn't get any lands. It was tough. It was nice to have all that localized to a single match. Spoilers for the rest of the day, but I didn't have any more like land troubles like this for the rest of the tournament. But it was still tough this early on, especially after the draw in round one. And here in round three, I took game one. I just needed to have the deck cooperate a little bit. But so now I was 1-1-1, and I was like, all right, I mean, don't lose hope, never lose hope. I'll just keep on trucking, I guess. Round four, I was up against Carnforge Ring. This was like the only time I faced mud in the whole event, which I thought was interesting because there was a lot of it. But I did a good job prioritizing threats off my Thoughtseize, and I burned them out with some help from Ancient Tomb in game one. Then game two got a little more complex. I got their hands stable, but the One Ring that they drew off the top at some point just really set them off. Their ring had 3 burden counters on it, and my hand was Bolt, Price of Progress. The One Ring had allowed them to get a lot of mana, but not a lot of like other scary cards. They were just like the One Ring was drawing them into like Candelabra, Saga. So they had like 3 huge Saga constructs, Grim Monolith, Keys, maybe not Keys. It might have not been Keys because then I think they might have used them on the One Ring. I can't exactly remember the board state, but yeah, likely not Keys. Anyways, before they really went off that turn, I had the option to bolt a construct that was a 3/3. It was before the Chapter 3 search trigger resolved, but I decided to hold it. And then on their end step, I cast Price of Progress to put them to 9, and me to 1, I think. Yeah, I think it put me to 1 because they took a huge hit with the construct. And then I cast Bolt on them, knowing I'd only have a few outs to get there, like maybe Meltdown, but I'd prefer to win outright. So I top decked Ponder, and then I pondered, and that found like Lightning Bolt, and I was just like, yes, this is so awesome. This is why you play Grixis Control, just like the thinnest margin. So I bolt them, they untap, the One Ring trigger goes on the stack with the burn counters. They activate to look for a way to win or gain life, but I know they can't gain life at instant speed, at least not in the versions I've ever played against. They did not have a Flesh Raker out, which was huge, so they couldn't fireball me. And yeah, we took that 2-0. It was pretty sweet. And then round 5 went back up to a pretty high table at that point, since I was 2-1-1, and I was facing blue-black tempo, and I was surprised to take this matchup down so easily. I won it 2-0, though in retrospect, my opponent, who was really sweet, and we had a nice conversation about the Pacific Northwest. They were dealing with some flooding in game one, now that I think about it. Then game two, I get 2 Fatal Push from the sideboard and 2 Red Blasts, so their threats are way more cheaply removed, and my removal is a lot more prevalent. It was pretty easy to get Kaito going, and I might have had a Murktide that game too. A lot of the finer details are blurring together, but I do remember some of the splashier stuff. So that put me at 3-1-1, my favorite band, and I was off to round 6 feeling pretty solid. My opponent in round 6 was one of my biggest fans, the Prince of Pauper. Made sure to let me know before the match, and it was actually, I had realized at that point that we'd met last year, and they were on Reanimator. Great choice. Yeah, huge shout out to my opponent this round, and they recently took my deck to a really strong finish. I think, I can't remember exactly what they said, definitely at least top 8. They might have won or came in second with it, which is crazy. Congratulations. That's better than I've ever done in paper with my deck. And yeah, they chose to play Reanimator this time. It was hard to get a handle on what they were working towards, since they kept a very good poker face the entire match, just inscrutable, hard to really know what they were working towards, didn't really project any emotions. Um, that was one of like, I think that was one of the more wall matches I hit too, because it just felt like I needed to eat or something, because the cards weren't just really making sense in my hand all that much. I wasn't really seeing like the through line. I was letting a Tamio like make a bunch of clues, and I just felt like they always had at least 6 or 7 cards in hand. So I just could not convert either game this time. And afterwards, they said they had a unfair advantage in the matchup since they had a ton of knowledge from my list, which I guess does help, since Grixis Control does benefit from people not exactly knowing what we're up to. But it was still a great match. I was happy to meet my opponent. But that put me to 3-2-1. So I was like, oh shoot, you need 18 points to make day two. That meant I had 10 points, right? 3 wins was 9, and then 1 draw was, yeah, 10 points. So I had to win the next 3 if I wanted to get to day two. If I won 2 of them and drew 1, that would only be 17 points. So I was like, shit, gotta do it. So round 7, I was up against Blue Red Delver or Blue Red Cutter, Blue Red Tempo. Aside from the first 2 rounds, where there were like dire complications attached to the matchups, this felt like the first time I had queued into like a good matchup. I felt like I really needed the break at this point after my mental dive in round 6, and things went exceedingly well for me this round, on top of the matchup being solid. Big props to my opponent for imbuing the situation with a sense of humor, because the draws were not exactly in their favor. We had a very nice conversation after the round about the kind of the political climate and how things are tough, but we find a way to stay strong and keep going. It was nice. They also said I was the nicest mean person, and I guess that's what you hope for as a control player. This was like during the match when I was like removing all their threats and everything, so it was yeah, it was banter for sure, but I was happy to take that down 2-0. Felt like I was on a roll. So then I was off to round 8, fighting Reanimator again. And this version of Reanimator was using Oliphant in the place of Troll of Khazad-dûm. It's another one of the common basic land cycler cycle from Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, and a pretty unexplored one. I feel like people tried it for like a little bit after Troll got banned and then just kind of gave up on it. So in game 1, my chip damage was on point, and though they got an Atraxa out via Reanimate, it was around like turn 4, not turn 2. So I was also able to like Edict through a daze or something. And it was before the Atraxa trigger resolved. And they had used Force of Will to get the Reanimate through my Cling, or maybe my Force, I can't exactly remember. And then I was able to burn them out from there, since I think the Reanimate put them to like 5 life or so. They couldn't do it again. Game 2 got grindier, as happens with many Reanimator matches, though I was able to burn them out this game as well. They had a tough decision where they could either chump my 2/2 army token or keep it and retain some board advantage, but not blocking put them to 3. And surprise, I had Lightning Bolt, so that was very fortunate for me. And then afterwards, my opponent revealed that they were actually one of my great MTGO nemesis. It was the Maverick Master, Achilles 27, who has beat me many times playing Maverick. So we got to talk for a while about Maverick and the directions Reanimator could go. Big shout out Achilles 27. It was awesome to meet you IRL, because we've had some pretty epic games on MTGO. Anyways, I won that match and was like, okay, it's going pretty good, but I still need to win this 3rd one in a row to make day 2. And it was Blue-Black Reanimator again, the 4th Reanimator matchup today, and the 5th of the tournament overall, because I've faced it in that the trial event. Yeah, going into this round, I was 5-2-1, so the pressure was on. It was a win and in for day 2. And again, huge props to my opponent. They were impossible to read, entirely placid, very pleasant and everything, of course, just inscrutable. And they took game 1 out of nowhere. We were just like, it was like a pretty normal Tamio game. And then all of a sudden they were just like, yeah, Entomb. And reanimate this Archon. So huge splashy plays don't need to be accompanied by histrionic or dramatic actions. It was a very informative match for that reason. And I was like, okay, I'll cling to dust targeting Archon. They were like, okay, force at will. And I never in a million years read them for that. So they had a big poker face advantage, I would say, similar to Bradley in round six. And game two, I took a mulligan to six. And when they said keep seven, I could feel the day two slipping away. But it took a lot of fighting, but I grounded through it. A lot of my reanimator game twos were grindy, and unfortunately, I can't remember if this was game two or game three of this match since they were similar, but in one of them, I did take an Archon trigger and I was able to come back. I think it was game two. I do remember that eventually my game three board state was persistent enough they could not reanimate a game changing threat, and Cling to Dust was delivering interaction for their mid tier threats like Red Blast or Fatal Push. This was the best feeling match win of the weekend since it put me into day two. And at that point, I was feeling great. I had done what I had to do. I took the last three matches in a row, even though I was a little disappointed in myself for drawing the first match and for letting my mental get low for round six. I felt like I had done a pretty good job overall. So yeah, I just went back. I had dinner plans with the people I was staying with that night, and I was pretty late for that. I almost said hi to Brian Bosch and Roll. He was right there talking to some other people I knew. I did get to say hi to Pokemogi this day, who is like a huge influence on my control game in Legacy, so that was really sweet. And then, yeah, next time for sure. Another crazy thing while this was happening, Adam was having his winning in for day two match at the table next to me. So it was two Grixis control players really fighting for day two. And I want to shout out Adam. His run was incredible, but he barely missed day two by getting paired up to a Nadu deck with Sylvan Safekeeper and just barely missed day two. And I was like, damn, I really want both of us to make day two on Grixis control. But the other person on Grixis control that I knew, the Gens, I'll talk more about him later, but he had made day two as well. And I was like, sweet, we put two Grixis controls into day two. This is incredible, more than I could have ever hoped for. And yeah, I got better rest than I did the night before, but I still woke up more tired. Who knows how that works? Like, some people say that your night of sleep matters more, or how tired you are matters more about like the sleep you got the night before. I don't really know, but I got back to the tournament feeling okay, well enough. And then my round 10 opponent was a really big fan, and it was really encouraging to get to talk to him. I don't know if he was newer to the format actually, but we did talk quite a bit about it, and it's really cool to see people playing Legacy. They were on Cephalid Breakfast. The first game was insane. I think the whole match was insane. But game one, I bluffed my way into discouraging them from going all in on like an assembled Cephalid Shuko. They had that out and they didn't go for it because I was like just bluffing. I had mana up, black mana up specifically, cards in hand. I was truthfully missing land drops, and I was like, shit, if they go for it, like I will just lose. But I bluffed effectively enough since the combo is pretty all in. There are things that could go wrong for them if they combo, so I just, you know what, I stood strong. Then it got a little complicated though, since the bluff got me enough time to draw Nimble Obstructionist and Force of Will. Now I wanted them to go off because I was getting beaten down by Nomads and Illusionist. And eventually they did pull the trigger when I seemed sufficiently out of gas, and then I was able to hang on and deck them since I stifled the Oracle trigger, and their Memory's Journey did resolve, but I was able to just hang in there. Cling to Dust gaining some life was nice. Whew, it was nuts though. Game two went to turns and had a lot of fierce fights, including one over Surgical on Nadu. And then later I was able to extract Nadu anyways, and I kind of defanged the deck at that point because I also clinged Thassa's Oracle at some point. And since I was 1-0 in the match, I did get the win. But I think I could have taken down game two as well, given enough time, because I had removed a lot of the threats and was feeling pretty stable. And I also removed the combo with Thassa's Oracle gone. And afterwards, my opponent asked me to sign their playmat, their Mark Teeden Ponder playmat, right next to Bosch and Roll. It felt really, I was completely humbled. It was very flattering. And yeah, shout out to my opponent. It was really great talking to you. And best of luck in your studies. And so, starting out in day two with a win, I was like, all right, let's do this. I can do this. I can do this. And then I faced Blue Black Reanimator again. This match was another insane one. I lost game one to a dual Tameo and combo hand. They didn't draw a surplus of lands, so their interaction slash protection was on point. Then game two was super difficult. This one took forever. Slowly, I pulled ahead and I started getting the sense that my opponent knew a lot more about my deck than they were letting on because they delved away Atraxa and Archon for a Murktide when I started like seeing a lot of cards via Kling or whatever. And one of my outs was definitely Reanimate to close this thing quickly. So I was like, I think they know me. And then we started game three with like 10 minutes, but neither of us could win once it got to turns. It was just really complicated games. It's too bad. It was my second draw of the tournament, and afterwards, they were like, "Oh yeah, didn't want to like lead with anything, but I play at the same LGS as you sometimes, but not super often." So I was like, "You do seem kind of familiar," and you did know exactly what I was doing because a lot of people don't play Reanimate in Grixis Control, and it is like a one of. But they specifically also called out from the Catacombs, so I was like, okay, they knew what was going on. So yeah, second draw, a little rough. Round 12 was hard. This was the hardest point in the entire event, yesterday and day two, though it had nothing to do with my opponent, who was awesome. Shout out to Robbie in the Portland Legacy scene. This was my worst performance from a mental standpoint. One of the people who play at my LGS said they took a photo of me during it, and they said I looked just entirely miserable. But again, nothing to do with my opponent. This was still a great match, even though it did not go well for me. Um, Actually, yeah, if you're watching that video, if you could send me that photo, I would like to see it. When they told me about it, they were like, I don't know if I should show it to you, but I mean, I can take a joke. It's fine. It's I know I'd like to see it because it'd be cool if there was a photo of the match. Um, I felt good in game one. I had a big Murktide Regent. I had thought seized her like twice, so I knew nothing crazy was gonna happen. But also she was casting like stock up and stuff, so at some point she got an Ugin and it slid completely out of control. Then game two, I fought hard to get to a position where like Price of Progress, Snap Price of Progress could have won, but the opposing counter magic is so good. Like blue post can hardcast Force of Will pretty easily, and she also had like a Tormod's Crypt just sitting there ready to go. So yeah, pretty hopeless. I knew I had to change something after this match, so I like can't remember what I did. I definitely ate something, and then yeah, it's all good. That was my second loss though, so or no, my third loss. So I knew I couldn't really lose another one if I wanted to really be live for anything super cool. Round 13, Red Painter. Again, second Red Painter match of the event. This one was as crazy as the last Painter match. I never realized how prioritized Ensnaring Bridge was until this event. I made a big mistake as well. It was a paper-only mistake, if you will. In the first couple turns, they like went Lattice off Karn, and then I destroyed Karn in response. So the Lattice was just sitting there, and I wanted it there because my mana was weird, and I could like cast my bolts off my basic swamp and stuff like that, even though it would have made future Karns pretty insane, but that didn't happen, fortunately. Then at some later point, I cast Meltdown X equals 0, intending to destroy their only red source, which is a Great Furnace, but it actually accidentally Geddoned instead, Armageddoned. And up to that point, like I said, I was doing great lattice work. I was casting Bolt off of basic Swamp, etc. I wasn't pitch casting Force, all that good stuff. But then I accidentally Geddoned. So yeah, that stalled things for a bit. I eventually used From the Catacombs as a Lava Axe, though, to close the match out. Whew, yeah, From the Catacombs was very cool this weekend. I also have to give a huge shout out to my opponent for some exemplary sportsmanship. We had both missed a City of Traders trigger, and it was caught at like my soonest end step, and they called a judge over. Situation was entirely initiated and handled and owned by my opponent. So I just wanted to say shout out and thank you for not exploiting a trigger I missed. So that was like a theme for the weekend, I think, was everyone was behaving extremely well. Everyone was exemplary, I would say. Um, so yeah, that was a win. I was feeling like I was getting back into it. Then round 14, I was up against Green Post, and hitting a second post matchup in quick succession felt like pretty bad luck, especially with the amount of Red Prison and Delver that made day two. I was looking around and seeing like Red Prison and Stompy, and I was just like, oh man, how many people are on post? Probably not that many, right? But it was another awesome opponent. Shout out to Legacy of the North up in Toronto. I did win game one with solid aggro, but game two they ramped into Ulamog very quickly, and they also very sagely played a Disruptor Flute on Consigned to Memory like right before. Not Force of Will, but Consigned, and that, yeah, messed me up. And I was pretty certain I had game three. They were in a stall against my beatdown. I had good Thoughtseize. They don't top deck super well. They kind of need the One Ring to approach really good consistency. I had forced a crop rotation that was trying to get a Planar Nexus, so they didn't have a lot of mana early on, and then I was able to Thoughtseize and strip their threats away, but they were making steady land drops. And then I made a pretty big mistake and just tapped out for Lorien Revealed when I felt safe, and then out of nowhere, and two Elvish Spirit Guides, they hardcast Emrakul. So yeah, I screwed up. I had a Consign in hand, probably could have found an Edict, could have countered the extra turn trigger. It was tough. It felt bad. And at that point, that was 4 losses. That's it for me. But I knew I was going to try and finish strong anyways, because I think I was still alive for prizing, like the $100 prizing or whatever. But at this point, I was exhausted. So around 15, I made a pretty big mistake. And I don't want to get too into it, but yeah, I just felt like I made a huge mistake. I started the round in 128th place, which is the last slot eligible for the $100 prizing. And then my opponent said it would be safer for me to intentional draw, but I should have thought about this more. Like, a bunch of people below me were potentially getting 3 points, and if I only get 1 point through this draw, it's possible I wouldn't maintain my placing and it could slide down. And I should have played it out regardless for all the fans and the content, but my opponent really pushed for it, and I was too tired to argue, so, you know, it's all good. Just another lesson for next year. So yeah, I ended up not safe, but in 133rd place, just outside prizing. So overall, my 4 losses were 2 Reanimator and 2 Post. Not bad if you really think about it. Matchup spread was far from forgiving, so I'm happy with this record. I wish I hadn't drawn the last round, just wasn't thinking straight. I know I'll do better next time. It seems inevitable, even after all the experience and knowledge I picked up this time around. And if we're talking about the numbers, I've been showing them kind of concurrently here. This is day 2 numbers, but let's see, day 1 numbers are here. Grixis control, yeah, punching above 50%. We were like at 56 or 54, I can't remember exactly last year. So they were slightly down from last year in the competitive sense, but in all the ways that matter, they were up. Way more people were playing the deck, 12 people. That made me so happy. The fact that 12 people were playing Grixis control and we still batted above 50, as is the deck's reputation, just filled me with so much pride and happiness. I really can't thank all of you enough. And also, I don't mean to sound arrogant. I'm not like assuming all 12 of you are people who watch the channel and stuff like that. Maybe you're doing something entirely different. And if you are and you see this video, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. I love Grixis control. But I do want to say that it can't be a coincidence that I think 12 pilots on Grixis control for Eternal Weekend has to be the most in years. And 3 made it to day 2, which is so cool to me. That makes me so happy. And the win rate goes up a little bit since we are more local to maybe players with winning records since we're on day 2. And I think it easily could have been 4. I think Adam was just It was so close to making day two. It was insane. It was an insane run for him. So just want to acknowledge it, shout it out. So yeah, that was it. That was Legacy Champs. I did not do any other events after that. So compared to last year when I played in like 4 or 5 of the challenges, I think this year I just did the trial, one challenge Friday night, and Legacy Champs day one and day two. Still felt like a lot more than last year. It was hard work, but I'm super happy I did it. Feels super accomplished. It feels great. I'm so happy I made game two. And now I want to just shout out some of the amazing things I saw. I got to meet Larson, who I've been playing against for a long time on MTGO. It doesn't feel right to call Larson one of my great nemesis since I feel like there's a lot of mutual respect there, and we always have great matches. And it was really great to finally meet someone I respect so much. And he had an insane run. I think he was undefeated in the Swiss. If not undefeated, then like one draw or one loss or something. I can't exactly remember. He had the aforementioned John Barber made top eight again 2 years in a row. Insane. Just a extremely dialed in player. And I feel grateful that I've gotten to practice playing paper against John in my life. One of the most intense matches I have ever played, I think, was when John was playing Black Saga Storm and I was playing Grixis Control. I lost in three. And yeah, it was a great match. That was at our LGS, just on a Monday Night Legacy event, but all the same, stakes felt high. Um, God, it's impossible to shout out everyone, but oh yeah, the Gens. I've been following the Gens for some time because I noticed that that username on MTGO puts up challenge results pretty consistently, and I'm like, who's this other person playing Grixis Control? Finally, like a couple months ago, he joined up on the Patreon, and we had a more direct line of communication, and we worked a little bit together before the event. His list was really, it's probably not all super visible here, but I'll just talk about some of the choices. Really not planning for any uncommon situations, just super to the point, super strong. One Drown in the Lock, one Cling to Dust, and a Spellbomb instead of the two Cling to Dust. Got a 1-1 split. Still playing Narset, two Kaito. There's a lot of similarities in our list. One Baragoyf, two Strix, four Bowmasters, four Lightning Bolt. Same mana base. Well, no, excuse me. He plays a Raucous Theater and only one Badlands, which I think is pretty sick too. In the sideboard, he did what I should have done and played Toxic Deluge instead of Dread of Night. Also playing Flusterstorm, just like, and also a mainboard Fatal Push, which I think having one in the mainboard really frees up the two that are in my sideboard. You don't really need two sideboard if you have one in your mainboard, I think, since you're really shoring up those matchups by having it mainboard. And he had an incredible run. I learned so much watching the Gens play this weekend. Just like, he just plays super cool. Whenever it was like an opposing player's combat turn, he would just go like, just like, let me have it. And just like just moves cards with purpose. And I wish I could play like that. Had an insane run, finished above me. It was one of the day two people for Grixis Control. One of the three. I'm not sure who the third person is. If you're that person and you're watching that video, please let me know. I'm curious. But yeah, I was watching his round 15. It was a real heartbreaker. He was fighting Blue-Red Delver and took it to game three. Opponent mulled to 5, just got a super aggressive hand going with like DRC and Corey Steel Cutter, and had a brainstorm at some point, and I was like, okay, we got this. Like, the Gens was holding Kolgon's command. All he really had to do was shatter the Cutter and shock the Delver. And turns out Delver player's last two cards were forced blue card. And from there, stabilization was not quite in reach because also the Gens was stumbling on land, which was super unfortunate. That was a heartbreaker because if the Gens had won that match, he would have gone top 32. And putting Grixis Control in the top 32 would have just exceeded all of my expectations for the weekend, and I would have just like lost my freaking mind. But it's still, I don't even know why I said that because it was such an amazing run. Like, there's nothing diminishing this run. I guess it's because he said it after the match. He was like, yeah, I wanted to get that promo, which is fair. It was killer run. Michael Reed, Eureka 22422, won the high roller event and also top 32, top 16, I think, the Legacy Champs, just on top of his incredible MTGO year. He's, you know, doing this shit too in paper. So it was really cool meeting like all these insane Legacy players. Uh, Artisan, someone that I've talked to online quite a bit here and there, mostly via the MTGO chat client, but all the same, we have talked, and I think there's mutual respect there. We finally got to meet in person, which was awesome. I think we had met super briefly the year before, but huge congratulations. He also hit top 8. It's just like, damn, it feels really cool to see people you respect, but also like, do so incredibly well. And yeah, I'm Max Dorshin, top 8 of the Vintage Champs, top 32 Legacy, I think. Just like, it's humbling to be surrounded by so many talented players, and it was really cool to meet everyone. I'm not mentioning even the half of it. So many people did amazing things this weekend, and yeah, how could I? I'm losing my voice. I'm still pretty tired. I'm recording this the day after I got back because I want to get it out soon, but I think I'll call it there. I think this video has gone pretty long. A lot happened. I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface. Yeah, I did talk about Harain. Shit. What else is there to say? It went by in a blur, and I'm sure memory is funny, and I'll start remembering other random things at some point, and I hope I can chronicle it all someday. But for the initial document, Eternal Weekend North America 2025, this is my report, and I'm so happy Grixis Control is still putting up above 50. Cool. Thank you everyone again for the support. If you came up to me and said hi during the event, just know I'm so grateful. It was almost overwhelming. It was, sometimes I'm not going to say it's like impossible to keep this channel going, but there are times that it is hard, and an event like this is just like, it's so much fuel, you know? It's so much incentive to keep doing what I'm doing. Okay, I'm losing my voice. I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in. Oh yeah, there was actually one other thing I wanted to do. I got this Mystery Booster 2 from the prize wall, and I want to open it here on camera. Let's see if I can, here, I'm going to adjust the camera. All right. First opening content on the channel. Maybe we'll transition to this. I feel like it's more lucrative. Just kidding. All right, here we go. Is that upside down? I feel like this sucks. Anyways, looks like we got a Radiance Judgment. This is a card from Urza's Legacy. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Cool. It has cycling too, which is very good. So if it sucks or seems hilariously above rate, you can cycle it and get a different card. Militia Bugler. Some of you may already know this card. It was a staple in Modern Humans. I feel like, I don't know, I'm watching the playback on the camera right now. It looks extremely grainy, so forgive me. Yeah, so this card was played in Modern Humans, and I remember when I was playing Jund against this card, it felt unbeatable. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, and then you can reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand. It's kind of like, you know, Imperial Recruiter in that sense. All these recruiter cards, quite good. So right now our sealed pod is pretty white. If we were doing that, got a Dacra Mystic. This is a card from the plane of Theros, I see. Looks like they have a couple Doomsday Pearls and Catcher's Mitts. And it is a 1-mana 1/1. Each player reveals the top card of his or her library. You may put the revealed cards into their owner's graveyards. If you don't, each player draws a card. Okay, got some cool group hug synergy there. Maybe you can exploit that with your Bowmasters or Narset. Not my first pick so far, though. We'll see. Spined Megalodon. This is a core set card. It might not really be from a specific plane. Maybe Innistrad. There's also like this cool Victorian plane that is still unidentified that has shown up in some cards. And the original Street Wraith, I believe, from Future Sight is from an unknown plane that is pretty Victorian styled, it seems. This one is a 5 blue blue for a 5/7 with hexproof, and whenever it attacks, you scry one. Card's pretty good. Can use a big draft bomb with hexproof. Oh, here we go. Twisted Abomination. Scourge Classic. Scourge was one of the new sets when I first started playing. It's a zombie. It's a mutant. 5 black for a 5/3. Terrible stats. But you can pay black to regenerate it when your opponent hits it with a lightning bolt. Regenerate doesn't exist anymore, but basically for people who don't know the keyword, you basically create like a shield around it. If an effect would destroy the creature, it does not destroy it. Instead, it taps it, which is interesting. But this card's cool because it has swamp cycling for 2. It's almost like Troll of Khazad-dûm. No one talked about this card when Troll of Khazad-dûm got banned. You could have played Twisted Abomination. Has the same ability for only 1 more mana, and you can regenerate it, and you can block it really easily, but, you know, whatever. This is actually not a bad draft pick, because it might fix your mana, depending on how powerful the dual lands are in a set. Well, it's Mystery Booster, so maybe you have no idea. Okay, Ruthless Knave is our first uncommon. This is an Orc Pirate from Ixalan. 3 mana for a 3/2. Not bad on the stat line. 2 and a black, sacrifice a creature to create 2 treasure tokens. And then you can sacrifice 3 treasures to draw a card. So maybe like if you are also drawing or drafting, you happen to draft something crazy with treasure generation, like, I don't know if Treasure Vault shows up in Mystery Booster 2, but that'd be funny. Because, yeah, this could be pretty good. I'm not sure. Alright, what's next? Convulsing Lycid. Lycid is a very forgotten creature type. I said it would be up there with Cephalid, but Cephalids are just so prominent with Cephalid Breakfast. Cephalid Illusionist is such a great card that I feel like it's removing Cephalids from obscurity. I feel like the classic example is Homarid, but people like Homarids. Anyways, 2 and a red for a 2/2. Red and tap. Convulsing Lycid loses this ability and becomes a creature enchantment that reads, enchanted creature cannot block. Wait, what? Oh, you can like bestow it. Instead of a creature, move Convulsing Lycid onto target creature. Wait, what? Oh, I see. Okay. So it becomes an aura that makes a creature unable to block. I'd like to see the Oracle text on this one, but I think I interpreted this correctly. And then you can pay red to turn it back into a creature. That's kind of cool. All right. Shredded Sails. Great card. Probably not as good as a Braid, but it reminds me of Wilt, which was in at least one Legacy sideboard throughout history. 1 and a red to destroy an artifact or deal 4 damage to a creature with flying. Not bad, and cycling for 2. Wilt is a little better because you can destroy an artifact or an enchantment or cycle it for 2. But yeah, this is not bad. Maybe you want some removal. What we got? Okay, not yet. Patagia Viper from Dissension. It's always nice when you get to see some Ravnica, especially classic Ravnica. This is from the original Ravnican block. And if you look closely, it's not going to show up on this horrible quality, but you can see the Simic watermark. So you know this is a Simic Guild card. 3 and a green for a 2/1 with flying. It is a snake. When it comes into play, put 2 1/1 green and blue snake creatures tokens into play. So this is a 3-for-1. And then if it comes into play, you sacrifice it unless you also spent blue to play it. So yeah, this seems good. I would play that. blow out your board for 3 blue, no, 3 green, sorry, 4 mana. But if you're in blue green and you get a 3 for 1 out of 1 creature, that seems pretty good. All right, so let's see what we got here. Argothan Opportunist. This is not our rare. This is a Brothers War card. 2 and a green for a 3/2. When it enters, create a tapped Power Stone token. It ramps. That's cool. Put it down there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, these would... Militia Bugler is certainly worth picking. I don't know, removal's good. Removal with cycling is really good. What are the cards I would definitely not take? I don't know, they're all pretty good. Shout out Scopy. There's so many people I needed to shout out this video, but Scopy, another person playing Grixis Control this weekend, drafted a lot of Mystery Booster too, and he said this was a great format. I can see why. Kasali Ambusher. You've heard of Kasali Pride Mage, right? That's what that card is called. It's a really cool, versatile disenchant effect on a creature. 1 green white for a 2/3 with reach. If a creature is attacking you and you and you control a forest and a plains, you may play it without... Oh, I know this card, yeah. So yeah, you can play this card for free at instant speed if a creature is attacking you and you control a forest and a plains. That's sweet, but it seems like it's asking a lot of my pool. It like puts me into green-white if I don't want a kind of mediocre body. Soulfire Grandmaster. Hell yeah. This is a Fate Reforged classic. It's not worth anything, but it's a really, really cool card. Let me read it to you. 1 and a white for a 2/2 with lifelink. Aggressively costed. This was an era of great creatures like Monastery Mentor. And instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink. How cool is that? Then 2 hybrid blue-red, so 4 mana. The next time you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand this turn, put that card into your hand instead of your graveyard as it resolves. This is a draft bomb. That's a draft bomb. And the best thing about it is you can play it in white-blue or white-red, since that's hybrid cost. That card rules. All right, let's look at our cool promo stuff. A white-bordered Isochron Scepter. Punishing Waterfalls? Hit me up. I know you want it. Yeah, this card is hilarious. Putting something like Reprieve under there, or Counterspell, I guess, is the classic example. I guess I'll read it for anyone who doesn't know what it does. It has Imprint, so it's like Chromox. It's from the Mirrodin block originally. It's like Chromox. And Imprint reads, you can exile an instant card with mana value 2 or less from your hand. And then you can pay 2 and tap this to copy the exiled card and cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So, yeah. You can put a Counterspell under there. You can put Accumulated Knowledge under there. You can do a lot of cool stuff. I would not draft it, though. That is a build around and a hard one. All right, let's see our Future Sight border card. Contagion. Ha. This is perfect for me, isn't it? I am well and aware that I'm a black mage. So this was part of the original pitch cycle from Alliances that also contained Force of Will, one of the key cornerstones of our deck. And Contagion reads 3 black, so it mirrors Force of Will in the cost too. You may pay 1 life and exile a black card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost, and distribute 2 -2/-1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. So you can take out an X2, you can take out 2 X1s, you can defang something. It's a really cool card. Doesn't see much play, but man, it's cool to have a Future Sight border of that. And we get a interesting playtest card. I'll hold it up and then I'll read it because it's probably going to be pretty entertaining. It's not focusing. Nah, fuck it. Okay. Chia, friend to maybe too many. I love these playtest cards because they always have funny names like Gendamount, stuff like that. It's cost 1 white, black green, Absent Commander, legendary creature, human wizard. Familiar spells you cast have flash. Bats, birds, cats, dragons, fairies, foxes, frogs, imps, lizards, and spiders are familiars, as well as any creature with familiar in its name. Okay, that's fair, yeah. Because, yeah, there are some familiars that are like elementals, right? That's really cool. And then tap, add X green, and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of familiars you control. That's sweet. So you can do like a familiars deck. This seems like it should be a real card, right? Why wouldn't this be a real card? Just because you have to codify familiar as like a keyword? That would be kind of annoying. But, you know, I could see this show up in Strixhaven easily. Cool. Thanks for joining me on Kisau Opens. Next week we'll be opening a box of Urza's Saga.